Why do you want to become a musician? Hi, I'm Garth Weber. I'm a guitar player. I've been at it for professionally for 52 years. Do you want to become a musician because of the money, because of the fame, the attention that you get? I don't think those are good reasons to do it. I had a friend who was, when I was about 25 and a very good drummer. And one day he said to me, he said, well, I'm going to give it 2 more years. And if I haven't made it, gotten in a famous band or become famous myself, then I'm going to quit. And I didn't say anything to him, but I thought that is not the way to do this, because if those are your goals, there are other routes that you can get famous, you can make more money, you can get more attention than being a musician. Being a musician is not a shortcut to any of those things. So here's how I became a musician. I was 11 years old. I was living in Boulder, Colorado, and I was sent out to visit my father for the summer. And he lived in San Francisco. So I spent the summer of '66 in San Francisco at my father's apartment. Now he was working. He was a teacher, and so he was gone every day during the day. And so I had nothing to do. So I would go to Golden Gate Park and wander around. And one day I heard music, and I followed my ears, and I came upon the band shell in Golden Gate Park. And there was a band playing. It happened to be a band called Moby Grape. They became pretty famous in the '60s. I don't know I don't know how many records they sold. But, most people in my generation knew about them. And I stood there and I listened to them and watched them. And within a very few minutes, maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes, I said to myself, kind of without realizing it, I said, I'll do that. In other words, I will be in a band like these guys. And, I had no idea the gravity of that. And I didn't think about the pros and cons. I didn't sit there and weigh it, and think, well, would it be a difficult lifestyle? Would I be able to get in a good band? Would I be any good at it? Would I make money? What kind of music would I play? None of those questions occurred to me. I was just bound and determined to do it. And so a month later, I went back to Boulder, Colorado, and I talked to my friends, and I said, I think I'm going to be a musician. What instrument should I play? And one of my female friends said, well, girls like drummers. I said, okay, I'll be a drummer then. And so I started playing drums. And I built myself a set of drums out of what was laying around. I lived on a farm. And so I had enough stuff laying around on that farm on the ground that I could have built a spaceship. There was just metal and wood and bolts and nuts and tractor parts. And so I built this set of drums and started playing. And I was okay at it. I wasn't great at it or anything. And then later, I switched to guitar as a result of this guy, Tommy Bolin, who was a great guitar player who rehearsed in my dairy barn at one point. But it never occurred to, I never thought about the nuts and bolts of it, like how would I do it? I just started doing it. I just put one foot in front of the other. I started playing the instrument. And eventually I formed a band with my friends. And when I was at age 14, we got our first gig. We played a high school dance, or junior high school dance maybe. And I remember we went and we auditioned, and we got the audition. We got the gig, and we came running out of the school gymnasium where we'd done the audition, and we were doing flips on the ground. We were so happy, right? And I never looked back on it and thought this was a bad decision or a good decision, but because everything fell in place. Instead of planning it out and thinking, well, I think I want to play with such and such musician, or I want to be in the Who or whatever. I just started doing it, and then everything fell into place. Next thing you knew, I was offered positions in various bands, and then at some point I decided that there wasn't much going on in Boulder, and so I went to Denver and I got a top 40 gig where I was making $250 a week. So I was making $1,000 a month. My monthly bills were probably about $300. So I was making money. I was actually saving up money, because in those days, gas cost 30 cents a gallon. Your electricity bill was $3.75. My rent was $250 a month. So I was sitting fat and happy. And then I decided, after a few years of that, I said, well, Denver is not, there's kind of a ceiling in how far you can go. So I decided to come out to California. I was really going to head for LA. But my dad was still living here, so I came out and I ended up staying with him for a while, and that became years. And the next thing you knew, I bought a house here in Berkeley, and so I never got to LA, which is good because I love the Bay Area. I'm glad I'm here, but it was an organic process. It wasn't that I planned it out. I didn't even have a specific goal. I just wanted to play every day, and it was not, it wasn't work for me. I could sit and play the guitar for 11 hours at a stretch without being even tired. I mean, probably in most cases I didn't even want to stop, but I had to. It was time to go to bed or whatever. So think about why you want to be a musician and what kind of a lifestyle it is. There are things about it that are really good, and there are things about it that are not so good. And it's also good to have another skill. At some point I started working as recording engineer, and that became my primary source of income during the 90s. I was, in fact, at one point in the 90s, I kind of stopped playing for a couple of years, playing the guitar, and I was just using my studio as my income. So anyway, it's good to have different skill sets that you can utilize, especially in the present environment when, now there's no gigs to be had really. But don't do it to get famous. Don't do it for the money.